Dear students, today we will talk about Model 7, and the title of the model is Subordination and Coordination. Now remember that these are two processes, first and second, by which we make a complex sentence. Do you understand? So, with the help of these two processes, that is subordination and coordination, we make complex sentence. Now, you know that sentence is highest grammatical unit, and many times we have talked that the word comes at the bottom, then above it phrase, above it clause, and above it sentence. So this is the hierarchy of grammatical unit. I have already talked about all those things. So the topic related with the word is covered in earlier modules. Related with the phrase in module number 6, clause module number 5, 6, and sentence is 7. So you must know that we make types of sentences, or we classify sentences in two different ways. The first way is on the basis of meaning. So here we have a statement, then interrogative sentence, then you have imperative, and then you have exclamatory sentence. Now these four types of sentences are made on the basis of meaning of a sentence. There is another way to classify sentences, and it is based on the form of the sentence. So you have simple sentence, you have compound sentence, and you have complex sentence. So in your traditional grammar, you have learned that a sentence is divided into three types, that is whether it is a simple, compound, and complex. But in modern grammar or modern grammarian divide sentence only into two types, that is the simple and complex. This is important. And for the complex sentence, the two processes are used, that is the subordination and coordination. Understand? You have studied earlier in traditional grammar that there are three types of sentences: simple, compound, and complex. But in modern grammar, there are only two types of sentences, that is simple and complex. Now, we have to understand this process, that is the subordination process. Now, you already know this word. Subordination in Marathi means दुय्यमीकरण, दुय्यम स्थान देणे. And remember that it shows a relation between two clauses. Subordination is a process that shows a relation between two clauses. We are going to take examples. But you have already studied that there are subordinate phrases, subordinate clauses. But before we study subordination in detail, let's understand other important concept, that is main clause. In short, it is written as MCL. Then you have coordinate clause, and then you have subordinate clause. Now, main clause is an independent clause. It means that the meaning of this clause is not dependent upon some other clause. This main clause is stands alone. For example, see, I went to the market and bought a costly watch which was stolen later in few days. Now let's analyze this sentence. Now this I went to the market, this is a clause. I went to a market, this is a clause. Then I bought a costly watch, this can be a sentence. And the watch was stolen in latter days. This sentence is made up of three clauses. Okay. The first two clauses are joined by and coordination. And the third clause is attached to the second clause with the word what. In this way, instead of it becoming three separate clauses, it becomes complex sentence, single complex sentence. But what we have to understand here is that main clause, I went to the market, this is a principal or main clause, and this also is main clause because they are not dependent upon any other clause. Their status is equal, their rank is equal. This first and this second. Now what is important here is that these two clauses, which are main clauses, are joined by the coordinating conjunction, and therefore I went to market and bought a costly watch. This becomes a complex sentence. Now further, we also attach this third clause to the second clause by a relative word what. Bought a costly watch that was stolen later in few days. Instead of what, we should write it that. Now this that word connects this separate independent clause with this earlier clause with that relative word. This that relative word is different from this coordination, and therefore it becomes a subordinate clause. So a subordinate clause is always a part of another clause. Now this clause is part of this that was stolen later in few days is part of this I bought a costly watch, this clause. But these two simple clauses, I went to the market, I bought a costly watch, they are joined by the coordination, and therefore they are, this whole sentence becomes a complex sentence. Now what we have to remember here, the process of subordination. Now subordination, subordinate clause, while a coordinate clause is joined with another clause, they are both of equal rank and status, you know that. Subordinate clause, as I told you, comes always as a part of another clause. Now we will concentrate on this statement that a subordinate clause is always a part of another clause. Now let's concentrate on this statement. How? I will tell you. Now you know that see, you give me money, I will buy a dress. Now, this is a sentence made up of single clause, and this is also a sentence made up of single clause. These two clauses are simple sentences. Now, if I say that you give me money and I will buy a dress. Now, these two simple sentences are joined by coordination, coordinating word, and which we call as conjunction, right? And this is a sentence which you can call main clause, and this is also part of this total sentence, which is also MCL. Now, if I say that if you give me a money, I will buy a dress. Now, this sentence is different from earlier sentences in form. In this sentence, from this to this, it is a subordinate clause, SCL. This total from this one to this one is MCL, and this SCL is part of this MCL. It means that this SCL cannot have independent status, separate status. This SCL has to be dependent upon this sentence, that is, I will buy a dress. If you give me a money, this subordinate clause has no its own meaning. It is always dependent. Now, let's understand, if a clause is part of another clause, what function it does in that clause. You have already know that you have elements of clause: S, O, P, C, A. These are the elements of clause which you studied in your module 6. Now if SCL is part of a clause, definitely it can function as either of these elements. Now for example, see, let's take example. What this college needs is an ideal administration. Now this is a complex sentence which is made up of main clause and subordinate clause. Now this what this college needs is SCL here, and this total is MCL. Now this SCL what role plays in this MCL? Now you can easily understand that what this college needs is an ideal administration. Here you can easily understand that this is predicate, this is complement. Definitely here it functions as subject. So SCL here comes as subject of this main clause. Now let's take another example. You should know what the college needs. Now if this is a main clause, this is SCL, and you should know this is subject, predicate, and here it is object. So in this sentence SCL functions as object. Now one more example. An active teacher is what this college needs. Now this is also a complex sentence made up of main clause and SCL. Now this is SCL, and here this SCL functions as complement. An active teacher what this college needs. Now I can elaborate. Now you may say that, sir, as here in regularly noun comes, but Here, the main subordinate clause functioning as a subject. Here also the subordinate clause functions as object, and here complement. So you have already said this, that it functions in one of the basic patterns of sentences that you have studied. So in this way, subordinate clause plays different role in a complex sentence. Thank you.